Is mastering for Spotify necessary and advised? Phew, that's a tough one. Hello everyone, I'm super excited. Today I just received an email with the master files of my new upcoming song on Lost Frequencies label called Save the Day. I can't wait to go upstairs there in the studio, listen to it and also share it with you. Still so excited. Let's open it up. Dropbox released, promo released, save the day, full master. Let's also pull the pre-master. Good. It's a little cleaner, a little tighter, a little more mid frequencies, a little more volume. That's exactly what you'd expect from a professionally mastered song. That's the difference. If you ever ask yourself, how big is it? It's not that big. I mean, it's a difference. It's worth the money, and it's always good to have someone else double check one of your songs. But it's up to you to make it good. It's your mixing skills, sound selection skills, the musical skills that makes the track. The mastering is just like the last percent, just a framing of the song to put it out there on all stores. That's my opinion. Some people think otherwise, but you just heard it yourself. That was internally recorded, switched between those two, A and B compared. It doesn't make the track, but it helps. And since we're already talking about mastering, I asked everyone on Instagram that follows me about their questions that they have about mastering. And I would love to answer them truthfully, give you an insight into the magic of mastering, how much it actually does, how to master, and like certain misconceptions, rules. Let's see what people are interested in. Mevici is asking, what do you think the master chain should be? This highly depends on the musical style, highly depends on the song. In general, my approach is first slightly compressing, just a hint, just to squeeze it all together, get a little more loudness, then EQing, then if necessary fancy stuff, mid-side stuff just to rescue if the mix is so bad that you actually need to do it, multi-band compression only if it absolutely is necessary, maybe some voodoo magic kind of stuff, for example Gulf Force or Soothe, like that kind of stuff can help if necessary. And then of course the biggest factor is the limiter, and I started using a clipper before it just to clip the very peaks and then limit it. That's like my chain, but there are millions of ways to make it work, and again, highly depends on the music, highly depends on the feel and style of the mastering engineer. That's something you have to find out for yourself. So Rinius is asking, do you already produce with your master chain on, or do you add this when your song is finished? I work with the master chain on, some sort or form of master chain, usually just a limiter. Just so I know how the squeezing at the end, that is a big factor, especially in electronic dance music, how it alters the song. If you just mix a song and then send it off to mastering and they limit it hardcore, things might be like squished too much and too much buried in the mix. For example, you always have the problem between like the break section being quieter and the drop being louder. And if you limit or compress the entire thing, the quieter parts get pushed out, and then the balance between the break section, it should be quieter, and the drop isn't right. They're then equally loud. Sometimes even the break sounds louder. So that's something I like have to consider while producing. So I have a limiter on just to know what it will sound like and react to the limiter, because there will be a limiter on at the end, so you need to know what it will do. Tamlin Music is asking, which limiter do you think sounds the most transparent and is the best in your opinion? In my personal opinion, I usually use the FabFilter L2, but just because it shows you a whole lot of stuff. Sound-wise, Yes, there are differences, but at the end, I'm anyways removing the limiter, and someone else uses a limiter. So for me, it doesn't matter that much. Is it ideal to use parallel compression and blending it during mastering? During mastering, parallel compression, yes. Sometimes if you want to give it like a color and a certain drive, I personally would use it more on buses and groups. So if you do stem mastering, then probably more. But if you just master, you just have that one audio file that you can work with, you're quite limited, and then blending, parallel compressing the entire thing is maybe already too much. Alliance is asking for tips on tape emulations and other forms of using saturation during mastering. I would be very, very, very gentle with this kind of stuff. If you put saturation on everything, the entire song gets the same flavor and there is no more contrast. So again, something I would rather do in the mixing stage. Except if your client kind of wants to have like a general vintage feel to it, then maybe add something like that. But I would be very careful with it. The mixing engineer, the producer already usually knows what they're doing. Would you let a different mastering engineer master your song? Yes, of course. I don't really care who does it. I just want to be able to listen to it and say, yes, I like it, or no, I need someone else. Pavel Jeanette has asking, hi John, is the Loudness war over? Thanks. No, it will never be over. Even if Spotify and other platforms limit something in some sort of formal way and make it equal, people will think about techniques again to make it louder. It's just competitiveness to the max. So whatever people apply rules to, like, people will try and find loopholes and make it loud again. Next question, should you do it yourself? That's a good question. I'd say at the very beginning of your career, yes, to get a feel for it and to save money. And probably your songs are not generating any kind of money, so spending money isn't really wise. And again, it's not a huge difference. It's not like someone mixing your song or co-producing or ghost producing, which is a lot more expensive. And then eventually, if you have a label, let them do it. If you don't like it, you can still do it yourself. And if you're experienced enough, you can do it yourself. I don't think it's such a big deal to master your own song. I sometimes do it if I'm happy with the mix. If I struggle with it, I much rather have someone else listen to it and do some magic to it. Really depends. Is mastering for Spotify necessary and advised? That's a tough one and maybe a controversial one. I personally have tested it. As you know, I have labels. I release music. I can release music whatever I want. So I tested it. I mastered a song in different kind of ways with different loops and RMS values and stuff like that. Put it out on Spotify. And I have to say, the ones where you apply what Spotify wants you to apply and what everyone will suggest you here on YouTube to do, it sounds a little worse actually. So I would still do it the classic way and just push it quite hard, especially for electronic dance music and pop music and urban music. It still sounds better and kind of louder, punchier if you just exaggerate it a little. If you give it more headroom, as Spotify wants you to do, it loses the character of those kind of styles of music. Like the heavy master is part of it to some extent, but don't overdo it. How much does the mastering cost? This highly, again, depends on the mastering guy, but I'd say 40 euros to maybe 120 if it's someone really famous and known and works for good big artists. I even know people that take 200, but then those are usually Grammy nominated mixing mastering engineers. Do you put a stereo imaging plugin or a stereo width plugin on the master track? Sometimes. If it's really narrow, then yes. But again, it's something you should much rather do in mixing. You have way more control over every individual element. If you do it in mastering, you can just take everything and make it wide. Bass in mono or stereo? It's one of these old rules that you'll hear everywhere, and I probably said it already a million times. Yes, it's kind of advised to put your bass, back in the days 300 hertz and below in mono for vinyl. Nowadays, that's not so important anymore. I would, for a club track, maybe put everything below 120 mono, 100. But feel free to make your bass stereo. I know some amazing pop songs that are entirely stereo in anti-phase in the low end. And it sounds amazing. So just do whatever you feel like, listen to it. And if you think it's cool, keep it. There are no rules. With that being said, thanks all for watching. If you have any more questions about mastering, let me know in the comments. Tomorrow, back again here in the studio, more music making. Thanks all for watching. That's it. Sign out.